And we're live. In a breaking news, the Israeli Air Force successfully struck a nuclear reactor in Arak, Iran. This is insane. Israel is still working nonstop with the Air Force, with the Mossad, with any forces on the ground that they have, and this just happened. It came out right now, as you can see here. That's an illustration showing how it looks. It seems to be that it's an inactive one, but probably they can make it active again if they want. But it was definitely part of the targets. Here you can see the actual image.
Yeah. Again, so we're talking about Israel first struck, prioritized, of course, all the active facilities, right, where there's the active enrichment going on and testing. So once they've mostly finished off with those, moving on to the inactive reactors is, of course, a very important move. As you said, reactivating a facility is a lot easier than building one from scratch. So effectively, you're taking out their secondary and third options as far as continuing to pursue a nuclear weapon. You can see the penetration. Look at that perfect shot. Right through the dome. You're muted again. Matzo, you fool.
Bit of fool. That was the story of my life again. No, I'm saying that looked like a very interesting fat kind of bomb that was falling down. I don't know if we can show that again.
Yeah, it came in. It looked like it came in fairly slow, and it looks large. I mean, that's definitely a big footprint on a thermal image right there. And if you notice the angle though of the image, very interesting. That's coming from the ground. That's not normally you see the videos. It's coming from either aircraft that are part of the strike group or from UAV. But look at the angle of the filming right here. So this is looks like a more special forces on the ground,
Yeah,
and probably marking the target.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's so. For those of you who don't know, a big part of the role of some special forces in Israel, like Shaldag, even Seyeret Matkal, that's like the Delta Force of Israel, and others, is to go behind enemy line and to give targets to the Air Force. Mostly Shaldag. That's literally their definition. They're the ones who raided the missile bunker and factory in Syria behind enemy lines. There was that crazy video where they went in, took down, I think, like maybe 30 or more insurgents, and then blew it up. So their job is to go behind enemy line and target it. Do they do that with helicopters as well? Sometimes do they give you like lasers, or that's mostly for the fighter jets?
No, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about marking targets, the way these lasers work is actually very interesting because it's not just a laser, of course. The laser energy that's being put out is coded. So you can actually have multiple laser spots onto the same target from different sources. Each one is coded differently. So it's not that all the weapons in the area go to one laser spot. You can have multiple lasers active at the same time. Each one is coded differently, and each missile is looking for the code that it was assigned. So you can have a simultaneous strike onto one facility from multiple launchers, multiple weapons, all active at the same time. You don't have to take turns, and you don't have to sequence it.
That's insane. And I guess, the main idea is you don't want to waste or put in danger the aircraft that have one shot. You take it, right. So these units will go, and they're very trained in infiltrating behind enemy lines, camouflaging, getting there, and also identifying. Many times they'll be used also to identify if there is, civilians in the building or not. That might be part of their job. Wait there, they will look and see, okay, all civilians, the family's out, the children is out. Now we see all of them coming in. Now is the time. So that gives you a much better kind of checkpoint of a human, checkpoint that can come, trustworthy, very trained, and it will tell you. And that's part of the role, where you find many times special forces combining their capabilities with the Air Force or the, military, army, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, another interesting development as far as the strikes going on right now, we have Israel's been targeting launch sites that were previously hit. Iran has been trying to bring some of these back into operation because they're running out of launch capability. So some of these sites, if you notice just earlier in the video, that's a lot of construction equipment being hit right now because they're trying to repair the launch facilities. So they're definitely hurting as far as their launch capabilities, they being Iran. And the IDF is now effectively restriking some of those targets.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Now, on another news, by the way, maybe one thing before, there was, some of you might have heard, but there was the attack missile that landed yesterday on a hospital in Israel and on a civilian building. And then following, the Islamic regime made this video that they're trying to make it look like it was a military target. And that's why they did it. So they made this hologram that I guess, like, I don't know, a 16 years old kid just made it there in the basement. And it's showing as if there's tanks and, you know, military equipment under the hospital in Israel. Well, let me tell you something, people of Iran, and also people watching in the world, that's something that they do. We don't do that in Israel. We do the exact opposite. We give all the bunkers and the shelter for the civilians first, and we definitely don't put weapons under hospitals. That's something that Hamas has been doing on steroids, Hezbollah has been doing, and who do you think taught them that? Iran. They all came from there. So no wonder that they're trying to kind of make it look like we do the same thing that they did, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
But moving forward, I think the most important question that people are asking right now is, will America join the fight? Will Donald Trump bring it right now and get the U.S. involved, not just by, you know, supporting Israel with equipment and with military gear and stuff like that and giving them green light, but will they come and join the fight?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. Honestly, there's been a lot of chatter. So, and it's very similar to what happened right before Israel struck. There's an uptick of rumors, reports, insiders saying this and that. You know, of course, before a strike happens, it's all unofficial, but definitely an uptick in chatter. As far as preparations go, military preparations, the U.S. has been moving a lot of forces around. So increasing forces coming in from the U.S. We mentioned the other day a lot of those aerial refuel tankers, which is a big deal. Also, the pre-positioning of B-2 bombers, which is a very important key to this operation. The B-2s are the big, expensive, but very effective stealth bombers. And they're the ones capable of carrying also the GBU-57s, or the MOP, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. So that's what you need really to reach into the hardened facilities that Iran has. So Israel's been striking, but has not been able to get as deep as necessary to destroy some of the hardened facilities. And really, that's where the assistance needs to come from, is being able to use those MOPs, the GBU-57 bunker busters, and they need to be launched from the B-2s.
Yeah, here we have this interesting video. We can watch it together.
Unusual for a U.S. president to foreshadow the use of U.S. military force, losing the element of surprise, but the president has been doing that since last night. After his meeting with the national security team in the White House Situation Room, President Trump called Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Dozens of Air Force refueling tankers have been deployed from the U.S. to Europe. All eyes now on Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, home to the B-2 stealth bombers, which are designed to carry two 30,000-pound GBU-57 bunker buster bombs. The Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, the only conventional munition capable of reaching deep underground and into mountainsides and hitting the main nuclear site at Fordo, 120 miles south of Tehran and 300 feet underground. This video shows the GBU-57 bunker buster being tested by the U.S. Air Force in 2017 at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. If the president orders them to fly, it's a 30-hour round trip to the Middle East and would require multiple mid-air refueling, hence the pre-positioning of dozens of refueling tankers to Europe in recent days. Here at the Pentagon, Sean, many took note when the president said in a Truth Social post earlier today, quote, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Soon we might know more about what that means." Sean?
Jennifer, one question. Do we have any idea? I know it's buried some 300 or 400 feet buried into the ground. We know these are 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs. How many may it take to totally eliminate that last facility?
Well, eliminate, it's hard to say, but usually the way this works, each B-2 can carry 2 of these bunker busters, these 30,000-pound bombs. They drop one, then they circle back, or a second bomber will circle and drop in the same spot. So usually it is a 2-bomb process, if you will, where the missile will be dropped and then the second bunker buster is dropped in the exact same spot to get maximum effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So as Last Ninja mentioned, beside his comment of we, my ass, that's pretty true. Somebody's trying to piggyback on some credit right there. But as far as this comment, this is very true. This just came out this morning, U.S. time, talking about the decision will be in 2 weeks. Okay, so that's what's being reported right now from the White House spokesperson, as well as interviews with Trump. So I think the reason for that is there has been reports also of direct talks, back channel talks between Iran and the U.S. What this reads like to me is that the U.S. has offered or given another deadline to Iran. So effectively you have 2 weeks to give your unconditional surrender. This is a change in rhetoric. Previously, it was you have to give up your nuclear program. You have to subject to IAEA inspections. But now it's changed to unconditional surrender. Now, I don't, in my personal opinion, I don't know if that's the wisest move, because that backs them into a corner. I don't see the Ayatollahs or the Ayatollah basically giving up when that's the option. If he has a way to save face, right, honor and respect is very important in the part of the world. I don't know if basically giving him that sort of ultimatum, but on the other hand, you kind of need to. So here's the question, and this was mentioned here, is there going to be follow-up, right? If for those not familiar with the taco meme, right, it's Trump always chickens out. So yeah, okay. So if you see taco showing up, that's what it is. And honestly, we've been seeing that happening. So I mean, for supporters of Trump, don't get too upset over this. Sometimes it looks like chickening out, but it can also be reevaluating a situation and going the right path, a different path. So take that as you will. We'll leave the internal U.S. politics out of it for now.
2 weeks is 4th of July. People are mentioning here. That's interesting.
Fireworks. 30,000 pounds of fireworks.
Maybe they're planning some big fireworks. Yeah. The only thing that I can think here is maybe Trump is really pushing for some kind of a deal. Either, it's a trick, tell them 2 weeks, and then tomorrow just unleash hell on them. Or he's really hoping to get some kind of a deal that will include the complete surrender of the Ayatollah, and maybe give them a way out to go and join their buddy, Assad and other dictators in Russia, and hide there. But it's a very, 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 odd thing to say in 2 weeks, as Israel is right now literally controlling the air and just pummeling them, and the bombers are basically in the area. So waiting 2 weeks, that's very, very interesting. What I'm afraid of is that, and I'm sure many people, at least my friends, that fled from Iran, they're afraid that again, they're just going to let their regime survive, and we're going to end up in the same story in 5 years. And the people of Iran that managed to put their voices out right now and try to start saying, yes, take these shackles off our feet, release us from this burden of this, Ayatollahs and these jihadists.
Yeah.
They're gonna kill them. They're gonna hunt them down. They're gonna make much worse for them if we let that regime stay in power. I'm very afraid of that for the people of Iran.
Yeah, I mean, but we can see here there has been an increase in the threats directly at the Ayatollah, both in rhetoric and in action. We see threats of increasing there, as well as this operation that happened, where the Iranian army chief, which is the new one, the last one expired a few days ago.
Let's see how long he survives. Yeah.
Yeah. So him and a bunch of other commanders of the IRGC were taken out. So this was quite an operation. I recommend looking up the article and reading the full story. Basically, the IRGC command, the higher ups, were all taken by Iran to a secret mountain facility where they would be safe. Israel knew about it the entire time. They simply waited until they would all be taken to this super secret supervillain lair in the mountains. Once they all got there, then they just destroyed it with all of them in it. So, I mean, at this point, if I had any kind of stars on my shoulders in the Iranian military, I'd be sweating.
Yeah. No, it's insane because literally Iran had, like, these guys had one job. They had 1,000 missiles aimed at Israel and one guy sitting ready to press the button, like literally like that. And then he gets a phone call, can you please come to the bunker? And they're like all run to the bunker. They leave this one guy there, I don't know what, and bam, they're all done. So he's sitting there probably like, who's going to authorize the command? Everybody's out. And that was brilliant. And in that time, the Mossad went out, start, taking down these targets and these launchers. And I've heard that there was also quite a lot of cyber attack involved, and some of the launchers didn't manage to get up, or they went and just fell down and just flew kind of into the ground. So it's just brilliant how Israel managed to counter that threat so brilliantly. I mean, they will be talking about that for ages in military academies. And it's funny how Israel keeps rewriting the rules of war, of how to wage a warfare from such a small country, and they're waging a war against the radical Muslim world on behalf of Europe and America. There's one thing that kind of is bothering me right now. There's a lot of talks in America about America first. And I think people don't understand that taking down the nuclear capability of Iran is America first. They keep saying, they want to destroy Israel, but they want to destroy America. They keep saying Israel is a small state and America is a big state, and the UK and I don't know what. Like, they hate America more than they hate Israel. Just Israel is on the way. It's like the small obstacle on the way that they see it. Obviously not small, because look what's happening now. But I think people need to understand in America that this is not Israel dragging America into another war. This is Israel fighting that war almost on behalf of America, if you ask me. Really. Because if they will have a nuclear weapon, the leverage that they will have on global terrorism, and if anyone thinks it's not going to reach America, they're very naive.
Yeah.
If they haven't already.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget, though, the amount of blood, resources, and lives that were committed by the U.S. for 2 decades in the war on terror. So, I mean, you can debate the outcomes and whether it was conducted the best way possible, but let's not forget that the U.S. has always been a big part of this fight. But
the U.S. undoubtedly was a big part of fighting terrorism globally, and big part of it was Iran. Why do you think, what was his name, the first one? Not Soleimani? Salami? Who's the guy that Trump took the first time, the general?
Oh, yeah.
They have Soleimani, Salami, Pastrami, they have all these, prosciutto. So there's a reason why he was taken down by the U.S., because it is an enemy of the U.S. It's not a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, but speaking of desperation, this is a troubling development. The munitions that are coming in right now from Iran, until now they were using the more conventional warheads, i.e., one large payload, but they've started using now the cluster munitions. So cluster munitions have a much larger area of effect because they spread out, right? And it's smaller munitions, but you get a whole bunch of them, hence cluster. The danger with those, which is why they're actually generally banned for use, is because they have a higher rate of failure. So you end up with a lot of duds laying around, which impact civilians later, emergency services that come to the area. So Iran has started using these. So this is a concern. It doesn't have, obviously, the penetration and single point destructive capability of a single warhead, but it spreads over a larger area. And normally what these munitions are for, cluster munitions, is for troops in the open, or in this case, of course, they're firing at civilians. So it is a troubling development, and it is an escalation. The Israeli government referred to this as a war crime.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so somebody asked generally banned, just so we can explain. So you have different rules, right? We're talking Geneva Conventions, so on. There's a few other. There's the Ottawa Protocol, and other different agreements that you can sign on to. Something to remember about the Geneva Conventions, though, it's actually you can sign by paragraph, meaning it's not yes or no on the Geneva Convention. For example, the NATO round 5.56 for the assault rifle, the one that the M4 uses, and most of NATO weapons, light weapons. That round, for example, is actually banned by Geneva Conventions, but most countries are not signed on to that. So that's what I mean by generally banned. Not everybody necessarily agrees on what is or is not allowed. So just an FYI there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. We were talking about the cyber attacks. So that was a very interesting going on with the attacks going on in Tehran or across Iran. We're talking about the near total collapse of internet in Iran. And the IRNA, that's their official news website. So it's not just the cyber attacks. Those were actually being used by Israel in order to reach the Iranian people. Iran, the regime, actually pulled the plug on the internet there. You can see the current internet status going on in Iran. They basically shut it down. And that's because messaging is reaching out to the population. A very interesting video that we have here is from, this is somebody in their living room filming what showed up on the official Iranian TV channel. And then what it was put together by Israel, and it's showing the dissidents in Iran. So everybody in Iran who's watching the official government news websites now actually get to see the footage from the protests against the regime, the punishment, the cruelty and the abuse by the regime. And this video is why the Iranian government shut down the internet there. So this is somebody's living room in Iran. You can see here that sometimes they try to switch channels and they get the same thing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean the scale of infiltration and the access that Israel has to Iran's infrastructure, their intel, their effectively anything you would want in time of war, Israel basically has full access to it all.
Yeah, no, they completely established dominance in the air, in the cyber. I've been seeing these videos that they're trying to post with like their police chasing Mossad agents. Some of them are literally filmed from Bollywood. Others, it's clear it's not a Mossad agent, just like an innocent civilian that they're putting their frustration on their own civilians, women and children. Do you really think that a Mossad agent is going to be so easily caught when Israel have complete air dominance over the area? I mean, they will lay waste to anyone that is going to try to catch them, or these Mossad agents are not going to go without a fight. So it's quite obvious it's just poor innocent civilians that are being reaching the frustration. But something that I find this is the hope for Iran. So many of the women in Iran have been oppressed. Where are the feminists to come and stand for them? I like this image of Khomeini. That's probably what's going to left from him.
From dust to dust.
From dust to dust. Yeah, there's quite a lot of funny kind of images here.
Yeah. So yeah, no, but it's right now I think there is a lot of that. What I see right now is multi-pronged operations going on, right? So there's continuing strikes by Israel onto military capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So they're attacking their military infrastructure, nuclear sites, and their launch capabilities, and of course the ammo depots. At the same time, we have cyber infiltration of trying to reach the Iranian people, right? That's happening hand in hand with elimination of the regime power structure.
Yeah.
Right. And in addition, now you have the threat of the U.S. getting involved, which would be effectively the final nail in the coffin of their nuclear operation if the U.S. deploys the GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrators. That will be the end of any of their hardened facilities. So all these things coming together with the latest news being that Trump will announce his decision on U.S. involvement in 2 weeks. So that's another 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks, when things are going this fast, 2 weeks is a long time.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks of Israel continuing strikes, the infiltration and the intelligence game continuing to play out. And at the end of it, the thing on the horizon right now is the U.S. involvement. So in the meantime, the U.S. has been repositioning a lot of its forces. There's satellite imagery of the large U.S. bases, for example, in Qatar, that are now empty. the aircraft are all gone from there. The reason for that being the proximity to Iran. Of course, the last thing you want to do with your air assets is have them on the ground when there's incoming. So the U.S. has repositioned those. It's not clear to where, but they're out of striking range, is what it looks like. As well as the big talk about right now is the B-2s, right? Because they can employ the bunker busters. So those have been already. This was 3 weeks ago, I think. Man, time is flying. But they repositioned the B-2s into to a base called Diego Garcia. That's a U.S. air base that's in the Indian Ocean, and that's with the proximity. So, of course, none of this is classified. This is all open source, just so we're clear about that.
Yeah.
But so they're in striking position. Now you have all the airborne tanker aircraft that were deployed to the Middle East. So the U.S. is positioning assets right now. But, of course, nothing happens instantaneously. Moving that amount of material takes time. Now, when it comes to talking about global powers, this is one thing that nobody is even close to the U.S. on, which is logistics. The U.S. can move the amount of equipment that they can move. I can tell you when I arrived in country to Afghanistan for my deployment, the amount of moving parts that are happening simultaneously, it was absolutely incredible to see. Almost more impressive than the firepower is the logistics. And that kind of ties in, there's that saying, right, that amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk logistics. Because ultimately, I mean, that's what's a lot of times that's what's going to win or lose a war. So even if the individual fighters are fantastic, if you can't supply them.
Yeah, I think you had a pretty unique experience being a commander in the IDF and then being a pilot and a warrant officer, I think, right, in the U.S.
Chief warrant officer, yeah.
Chief warrant. So that's probably, gave you a pretty good. But wait, I want to go back to this joke. It's I had a dream last night. All of New York was in ruins and Iranian flags were flying everywhere. That's strange. I also had a dream last night. Tehran was thriving, full of high tech and covered with billboards. And then Khomeini, what did the billboards say? And he's answered, I don't know. That was in Hebrew. They were in Hebrew. So that's just give you an example of what will happen if Israel would be able to finish the job there. Only good will come out of the fall of that Iranian regime. That's literally the most, at least as far as we know right now, it's one of the most evil regimes on the face of this earth. I mean, Assad collapsed, so there was them and Assad kind of competing who can be more evil as a regime. Now Assad is gone, and now these guys. So quite crazy. What's going on here? We will not surrender. It's very funny how they keep saying that, hiding in their bunkers, same like Hamas.
Yeah.
But let's see what's going to happen. I'm an Iranian. Israel attacks gives me hope. I've heard so many Iranian girls that I talk with, that are living in exile, and they keep telling me the same, that they can't wait. But this is something I want to stop on for a second. That's very interesting. This is Netanyahu. Cyrus freed the Jews. Today, perhaps the Jews will free the Persians. 2,500 years old favor is being returned. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, that's an AI image, not a real.
Yeah. For those who are wondering. But I mean, no, seriously, that's when you think about it, like in the books of history, if they read about it 1,000 years from now, if humans are still alive on this planet, and Israel will be the one to free back the Persians, give them that would be crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's speaking of the Persian people, the Iranian people that want freedom, it's crazy to watch some of these protests going around when it was talking about the Palestinian conflict, and a lot of the people that were counter-protesting to the pro-Palestinian movement were waving the Iranian flags, because those were the ones that did manage to escape. They got out. A lot of the Iranians that are living in outside of Iran, they're allowed to express their opinions, and they're anti-Iran. They're against the extremist governments, whichever country it is. So I mean, there's so many people in those countries that are talking about in the Islamic-run countries. So again, extremist Muslim, not moderates or those who actually have some kind of desire for an open and free society. Right. So let's not forget that you have the people that escape from the Middle East are supporting Israel, and the American college students are supporting the terrorist regimes. It's
That's such a crazy
interesting
twist of
times.
events. Yeah. Speaking of airplanes, so Andy here bought a telescope, and now I'm looking through the telescope at the airport. I hope I'm not gonna get. They don't want to think that I'm spying on them, but I'm trying to see when are the airplanes gonna start flying out of Israel, so I can go back to Germany and not miss my kid's graduation. But I got crazy news just before this talk. I had a call from the German embassy, and they told me that they might find a way to arrange for me to go back to Germany. So let's, finger crossed, whoever, has been tuned to what's happening. I would have stayed in Israel. I love being in Israel, and I think it's a crucial time to be here. But, I also have my obligations to my son, and finishing that chapter in his life is something that I'm very, very keen on not missing. And some people were asking a little bit about this. This is not the Palestinian flag, and it's not the gay parade flag. Just to be clear about this, this is the Druze flag. And this shirt is a shirt that was gifted to me by a Druze MMA fighter who won a fight in Brazil with a team called Fighting Nerds. And I, was very involved in helping him with all the sponsors and everything. In general, just such an awesome dude that I'm honored, to know someone so cool. And he gave me that shirt as a gift and some Fighting Nerds kind of glasses. So I love to wear it. And he always brings, to bring them home, and he carries the Druze and the Israeli flag, which is a great reminder of the beautiful coexistence that the Druze and the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims, have in Israel. It's probably the only country in the Middle East where it's happening. Daniel, do you mind taking this? I might be having a call from the embassy, so...
Yeah, honestly, I don't have much to add. But while you're doing that, to everyone interested, right? Mansell talked about the diversity in Israel. It's approximately 20% of the population, the citizens of Israel, are Arabs, right? They live there peacefully, and that's good. It's important to remember before I moved back to the U.S., I lived in Israel for a while, and I was in Haifa. For those who know Haifa, it's a very mixed city. In the best way possible, best shawarma, I think. Well, outside, if you go to the actual Arab villages in the Galilee, that's where you get the best shawarma. But Haifa is good for a big city. I lived in a neighborhood there that was a full mixed neighborhood. Lived 1 block away from a mosque, and no issues, right? My landlady when I was renting there, was Arab Israeli. You have freedom there. So a lot of the propaganda saying that Israel is all... it's what they call it, the ethno state, and they're calling it a apartheid state is absolutely absurd. I mean, to say that is absolute ignorance. So if you want to enjoy your ignorance, do that. Please get educated. All right. See a report maybe of flights might start again. Yeah, flying out of Israel, hopefully. That's it's difficult when such a small footprint country like Israel, your airports are definitely in range all the time. So, all right, for everyone, I know Mansell had that phone call he had to take. Thank you from him and from myself. Stay safe. Everyone around the world, the whole globe is getting a little too hot to enjoy. But stay safe, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.